Hello there, everybody. It's me, Garrett Kidney, the co-host of You've Got to Be Kidding Me on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
And I am Liam Jones, my full name, and I'm also a part of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network as a co-host for You've Got to Be Kidding Me.
We are a TNA history podcast that covers TNA 1 month at a time. We cover all the drama, all the matches, all the Vince Russo nonsense you could ever want in your life.
Have you heard of TNA? I bet you have, but would it be funnier if two people made jokes over it the whole time? Probably.
So if that sounds like fun to you, check it out on this very Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network, and Liam will do bits and whatnot.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Super J-Cast. I'm Joel, joined by Damon McDonald. It is Monday the 15th of July 2024. This is episode 319 and it's not just two of us this week, Damon. We are joined by a third chair at the Super J-Cast hot seat today. It's a big episode for us. It is the G1 Climax preview show. So unfortunately, listeners, there's no time to discuss any other trifling matters like Fantastica Mania USA or sports. Not that anything interesting or noteworthy's happened on either front. So let's just get straight into talking about the only summer tournament that matters, not the Nagoya Sumo Basho. It's the Grade 1 flipping Climax. Now, we had all manner of people reaching out to us wanting to be on our illustrious G1 preview podcast. People who work for New Japan, other podcasters, they were queuing up to get this very, very special spot. But we turned them all down, didn't we, Damon?
We
and
sure
for
did.
us, there was only one choice. One man who could provide the level of statistical analysis and insight required to get to the heart of this Grade 1 Climax. Someone who really is an unsung hero in the wrestling community. Someone whose eloquence and brilliance and ability to use the data in a way that brings the wrestling stories to life and makes them sing is second to none. That is the guy we wanted for the Super J-Cast. But unfortunately, Craig William from Pro Wrestling Musings has no interest in doing the podcast and thinks I'm a bit of a twat. So we're going to have to make do with Jay Michael. Thanks for filling in.
The fuck? I'm hanging out, man. So do you want me to show you graphs that look like seismographs for a match? Is that what you want?
Yes, we love that.
Okay.
We love visually.
Right,
if you don't have the data for how many significant strikes Great O'Khan has landed this calendar year, then you might as well just hang up now.
Right, like points of stasis, 10.
I don't even know what that means. Wow.
Sorry.
Oh, wow.
Well, thanks.
Now, listen, in all seriousness, but first of all, Joel, I knew the bit was coming. Like you notice how I just sat back? I was just waiting for it. I actually surprised you went that way, but yeah, I knew the bit was coming. No, in all seriousness, we here's what we'd like to do. Like, I feel that we do best when we have guests like Jay Michael, in the sense that it's a voice that should be heard, and it's a voice that people should be reading often. Voice reading, you know what I mean. And I appreciate the effort that he puts into each of his pieces, and I think, quite honestly, he's spot on the vast majority of the time. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I know Joel is too. When he mentioned the name, I was like, yep, I think that's the one. I think that's what we want. And that's not to say
I'm pulling back the curtain. I've been nagging this guy for fucking years to come on the podcast. He did it once with booze.
Yeah.
But with me, I'm busy. Oh, I've got a fencing tournament. Oh, I'm tired.
I am. Listen, I'm going on an hour and a half of sleep. I just taught 65 to 12-year-olds about fucking physics.
Wow.
I don't know a goddamn thing about that. Yeah. Yeah, about gravity and fucking Isaac Newton and trash. So, yeah, and you caught me. I don't have any fencing tournaments. I'm stuck in this miserable weather.
Oh,
It's like 85 degrees in my house. I live in a fucking valley, and it's been 90 degrees for the last 8 days, and we still got 4 more days to go. And I'm not built for this weather.
I'm right there with you. Can I suggest something? Air conditioning.
Yes.
It really is a nice thing. It really is a wonderful thing. Put that fucker on. You're gonna be cool, comfortable. You know, it's nice. I know it is
So-
brutal. We've been getting our asses beat, Joe, with weather that has been, dare I say, unbearable. With 90 plus, feels like 10 and change for like at least a month now. Not consistently, but like it seems like every other day it's been like that. So yeah, we're getting our fucking asses kicked. So I'm right with J. Michael on that one.
Damon, can I just jump in for a second there?
You can, yes.
You just triggered my mind there when you're talking about asses getting beat.
Yes.
Can I talk about how much I love asses getting beat when it's imperial scum, like the English national football team?
Oh, Jesus Christ! He went there. Well, look, I'm gonna hit mute. Joel, I guess the floor is yours, my man. Listen. I'm
I'm not the one who started it. The floor's yours, J. Michael. If you want to go on the anti-English rant, I'm right with you, mate. We
All right,
stink.
you know what?
Fucking Gareth Southgate, get in the bin.
If that's what you think, Joel, I got news for you. I got somewhere else to go with it. So I'm watching the game yesterday, and I have no fucking clue about soccer because it's not a relevant sport. So I'm watching the game, but I'm rooting against the English, of course. But I have no vested interest in Spain. I'm just mad that the English knocked out the Dutch because I married into the Dutch. And, this happens a lot. Like, I'm rooting vociferously against a team, and I have no vested interest. It's just I'm rooting against somebody. But then when they scored that goal in the 85th minute, I felt an overwhelming sort of rush of guilt. And it keeps happening to me that I'm just engulfed in that schadenfreude and I'm cheering against somebody. But then when they actually lose, I feel bad about it. And this cycle just keeps continuing. So rooting against the English national team, I often root against the Los Angeles Lakers. TJP, if you're listening, you can fucking choke on Green 18, my friend.
wow.
And keep that throat open for Green 19 next year, buddy. Yeah, the Lakers only have 12 championships, by the way. So
Yes, but they stink.
I don't know why. Maybe it's the Catholic upbringing that I just can't enjoy hating stuff. So Joel, it's not keeping me from reveling in your loss, but I'm also feeling a tense amount of guilt for rooting against you. But I'll root against you again.
So he's looking for sympathy, Joel. So I just want to make sure I got sympathy for feeling bad, and he's going to come in and bust your balls. All right.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Just saying words here. I don't know how to respond to that. All I will tell you is that I am happy that at least Harry Kane has continued his absolutely miserable record of winning fuck all in his career, because he's caused me intense amount of pain, not only as a Tottenham player, but also this season as a Bayern Munich player. So fuck him, and no trophies for you.
Mm-hmm. Hey, did you guys see? First, I'll give you my soccer / football hot takes. One, I will say this, and I let Joel know it was like I was rooting for him hard. I wanted him to get some fucking happiness in his life, and editor Dan as well.
All right, I do have some happiness in my life.
I know, but sporting wise. That fucking. Again, I don't know the players, so forgive me. The dude who headed the ball, like on the goal line in the last 3 minutes, like that was amazing. Yeah. I mean, I know he's like, yeah, it's fucking awesome. And then, did you guys? Any of you guys see the complete and utter fucking nonsense on this? What's the other tournament that people are caring about? The Copa what? The what? It was like Argentina.
The Copa America.
Is that what that is? Yeah. Is that something I should care about as a sports fan?
Yeah, it's like the American equivalent. When I say America, I'm talking about the continent America, the American equivalent of the Euros. It's a prestigious tournament. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of trouble. Just saying, there's a lot of trouble.
With all the tickets.
Yeah, I mean, well, not for nothing. Don't you need a ticket to get into a fucking building? I mean, the Miami Dolphins play there. They usually don't have an issue. It's all those soccer hooligans, Joel. That's what I'm going to blame again. Soccer hooligans.
I mean, you can just crawl through the vents like they did.
That was nuts. Is that what they were actually doing? They were crawling through they were fucking aliens.
Yeah, they bum rushed the fucking gates, and they delayed the game by like over an hour. Because they just like there's video of
the Colombians are in the vents.
They were in the vents. I swear to God, there's video of them crawling in the ductwork to get in. Like, if anything, they're fucking resourceful. That's for goddamn sure. But I felt bad because it's like you had people sitting out with tickets that couldn't get in, like, and they probably paid a decent amount to get the fuck in the building. Beat. They're just fucked. I don't know. I don't know what you do. And the big thing now is that there's World Cup games that'll be there, so they got to figure that shit out real quick. Figure it the fuck.
Well, luckily, a problem that New Japan Pro Wrestling won't be having to deal with. People crawling over the fences at Rock and Hall and trying to get into Sumo Hall.
Oh, come on! They're on the upswing. I'm telling you, get on board. Get on board the New Japan.
Riding the crest of that tiny, tiny, tiny wave.
That's it. Yep. Overwhelmed. Chris Charlton holding him back. No, please, you need a ticket. Getting crushed. Getting fucking steamrolled by 12-year-olds. My glasses. Oh, fuck us. All right.
We cannot get through one episode of this podcast without Chris Charlton catching strays.
I know. I feel bad. Kind of. All right. Joel, this is a big show for us. Everyone gets excited and listens and agrees and disagrees. Can we do one thing before we get rolling?
Actually, can I do one thing before you get rolling?
Yes, you can.
All right. I'd like to continue where we were before. Joel, is there any sport that the British are actually good at? Like cricket, rugby, like 2020 cricket? I'll give you the variants. Like, you don't have any good NBA players. You don't produce any baseball players. Obviously, American football.
I think they're good at guitar bands. That's a sport.
I think we have. Don't we have 2 UFC champions at the moment?
No, real sports, not fake sports.
Wow.
Zack Sabre Jr. is bringing it home. Does that count?
Ooh, I got a lot to say about that. By the way, speaking of bands, Damon.
Yes.
Me and you have had one interaction in our lives, I believe.
Okay.
And that was me chastising you on Twitter because somebody on this show years ago asked you about the best bands on Creation Records.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't say Super Furry Animals, and I was incensed.
My bad. I mean, listen, when you're on the spot, it's tough, right? You're just like, okay, I gotta. But yes, they're up there. I said I believe the week after. I was like, yep, absolutely, they should be on that list. No, but I will also say that I can't put them up there with fucking Mary Chain and Oasis and come on,
Oh well, if we get to the questions, there's a question about Oasis that I'm coming in swinging
hard. All right.
Oh yeah, you're talking about somebody who thinks Blur is the best band of all time.
Come on, I mean, I've seen them a million times. Anytime they're here, anyway. And also, I saw them at Hyde Park. They're one of my favorite bands. Don't. Yes, of course. Bluebird's one of my favorite bands of all time.
I skipped Coachella this year, thankfully.
Oh yeah, I watched the stream. It was just depressing, but what are you going to do? No, I love it.
Death is impending. Yeah,
I love them. Love them with a passion. This Is a Low might be one of my favorite songs of all time. Just FYI. All right, Joel. Again, so I'm going to now use my stage.
Hold on, wait a minute. Joel didn't answer the question. Joel, are there any British sports that they actually excel at?
He said UFC.
No. Real sports.
All right.
No, we're crap at everything. Yeah,
good.
Is that what you want? You want me? I'm the living embodiment of the Tomohiro Ishii meme. I'm a sad man. Say whatever you want about me. So get through your little scripted burial of England and English sports. Just get it out of your system so we can get on to talking about New Japan. It's 9:30 now. I want to go to bed at some point today. We've not even got into the New Japan talk yet.
I know. 13 minutes in is a record for us.
War is the greatest sport of all, Joel, and you're very good at that.
Yeah, well, I'll take that. I'll take the W's where they come.
With our help.
How's you? Cricket, you're probably pretty good, right? I mean,
as if I'm going to watch cricket.
I know, right?
Don't be preposterous.
God bless you. All right, so now, let's. I just want to shout out to the great Chris Samsa, who once again is rocking and rolling with his G1 pick'ems, and I guess that's the place to be, right? I guess that's the place to go for all your pick'em needs, all your gambling passions. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but go to, what is it? King of Sport. How the fuck's his website again?
Sport of Pro Wrestling.
That's right. Sport of Pro Wrestling.
I'm logging into my Sport of Pro Wrestling account as we speak, so I can check my G1 pick'ems.
Nice.
Because that is one of the brilliant features of the. Yeah, I have done, of course.
God damn.
Do you remember when we did a podcast where we did our pick'ems live on air and it was rubbish? We were just like, then, oh no, wait, who's he versus? Oh no, my points don't add up right.
I'm just very happy that
bad audio.
I'm just fucking happy, Joel, that there's no more playing tournament, so I don't have to fucking. Because for whatever reason, my head could not wrap itself around it. All right, so I'm done. Again, go to Chris's site, follow him on Twitter, get involved. That's where all the action's happening. So he sent me a very nice text the other day. As a matter of fact, I did not respond to him either because I'm terrible. I just don't respond to text. It's just I don't know why.
The lack of response is not. If anything, it's an endorsement.
Correct. Yes. I read everything, but I don't always respond. I just don't always have the mental capacity and the energy to do so. I know it seems preposterous, but yes. But he sent a very nice paragraph, putting us over, happy that we're happy with the product and thanking us. And I was like, he's a good dude. I love that. I love that guy. He's the best. All right, Joel, we got a boat to drive, right? A G1 boat. Why don't you kick us off?
Let's start off by asking you, J. Michael, please give us your thoughts on 2024 New Japan. Where are you at with the product right now?
Oh, fucking hell. So, all right. So I don't want to come across as too negative here because I do think that I look at the product positively most of the time, but I'm preparing a B block preview and I had to edit out quite a bit of it because the original introduction was just so antagonistic towards what they're doing. I think that they are in a creative crisis. I do believe like what they did on the New Japan Soul Tour does seem like a course correction. And obviously adding in Bolton and Callum Newman gives a semblance that there's some vision. But honestly, I feel like 2024 has just been an incoherent mess. I think they completely fucked up every title situation conceivable. I've counted. There's been 37 title changes already this year, which is like 10 more than the entirety of last year. Wow. It's just preposterous. Like almost every title changed hands at Wrestle Kingdom. And then the New Beginning Tour, which is not supposed to be a reset, they basically changed every title again because the white people showed up and you had to give them a trinket for showing up in Japan. And then they basically have changed them over yet again as we made our way through spring. You know, it's really lacking any sort of vision at the moment. I hope they're going in that direction. It's like this self-immolating, like Vietnamese monk booking where every single month it seems like the person that's taking over that show not only wasn't allowed to like talk to the other people that are booking, but wasn't allowed to see the show that happened before them. Or they were like put into a chair and then just sort of like Clockwork Orange style, like hypnotized into despising the person that booked it before them. Like there's just such bizarre schizophrenia going on. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's been any changes. Obviously, there's that bureaucratic bully fuckface that you guys try to write a hagiography for every week. Maybe it's his influence coming back from his exile in Noah, but I'm optimistic about where they might be going. I'm hoping the G1 is really going to be the indicator of that. But so far, like C-.
Okay. Do you think
I'm sending it right back to you for edits?
No. Do you think it's more of the history of kind of starting to get involved and invested and kind of feeling the course being the right one and then having that rug pulled out from under and then it feels like a restart again? Or I guess the question is, do you have confidence that this is the path that we're going?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things that, I mean, unfortunately, a lot of these title changes that happen make sense contextually, but they just make no fucking sense when you just take them as a whole. Like putting the title on Dolph Ziggler after David Finlay just won that title. It was inaugurated at Wrestle Kingdom. And then he just had that sort of unprecedented cage match, which kept me up till like 7 in the fucking morning to watch. And then you take the title off of him immediately for someone who's not relevant, someone who's not pertinent, someone who doesn't matter and isn't going to matter, instantly disappeared. Same thing with the Matt Riddle stuff, which obviously at its face value was abhorrent to begin with. You know, if this is the direction that they're going, and obviously Desperado has sort of said stuff that he's going to take a hiatus anyway. You know, maybe this was just him getting his buddy over. If this is the direction that they're going with the slate of champions they have now, I just hope that there's stability into Wrestle Kingdom and through it. And I am encouraged by this G1 Climax field. I just hope they let them go.
What do you think the possibilities of that are, though?
I don't know, because it's weird. You know, one of the things I was going to talk about with the G1 Climax is that I feel like the last few years there's been a scaling back of just the in-ring performances. Like it seems like a purposeful effort where we're not seeing those nights where you have 2, 3, standout matches. And I kind of feel like with the youth that we have, where, Chris had shared the thing where this is the 5th youngest G1 Climax ever. I feel like this is just the year to let him loose. Like, I don't want to sound like work rate guy, but I feel like that's what they need right now. They need to blow people's socks off with the ring stuff. And I think they can. They just need to let these guys do it.
What are your thoughts on the way that they've set the table for this G1? The qualifiers, the fact that they've trimmed it back to the 2 blocks of 10, and also the fact that we got the top 3 going through, just the quality of the field itself.
All right, so the quality of the field itself, I think, is great. I think the play-in qualifier is like this revelation, right? Because it's something that just, I think, universally, I've seen people wonder why we haven't done this before. And I definitely appreciate a playoff before the G1 Climax. Now, Joel, I know you're setting me up because I've badgered you with this for years now. I think this format is trash. I think that they've sacrificed the authenticity and the essence of the G1, chasing after just a few hundred tickets, and I think it's fucking pathetic. I hate anything besides a 1-match final. I just think that is the true best possible scenario for a G1 Climax, is that you have 2 blocks and then you have a strong final night where you have, basically always a winner take all final, however they get there. And to me, what that gives you is that the person who wins their block, which should be a bigger fucking deal than it is, I think the person that wins that block sort of assumes and accumulates the credibility of that block. And then they go into the final, right? I mean, that was just a winning formula. Night 1 was A block, night 2 was B block, and then you had the final. It was immediate. It was an immediacy and a momentum to it. I feel like, when you have a playoffs, there's a level of disconnect each level of playoffs. So if you have a semifinal, you're a level of disconnect removed from the blocks to the final. Like last year, you had a quarterfinal. This year, you had that incomplete round of 8 that they're going to do. I just feel like you're getting further and further away from the blocks mattering and the winner of the blocks feeling like somebody who went through the gauntlet of a G1 block and more somebody who just won a playoff, which is fine. I know a lot of people will counter that by saying that, it's real sports, right? This is the wave of sports. Every sport has expanded their playoffs to some degree, but real sports are real sports. And this is pro wrestling, and pro wrestling is fucking fake. It's theatrics. Oh, sorry. Oh my God. Sorry.
Come on.
I know that Jersey education.
I know. You could say that's not a joke.
Number 2. Well, number 2 in the country, not number 1 like Massachusetts.
Damon, this isn't a We Work Stiff podcast.
My bad.
I'm wearing blue glasses. Should I wear clear glasses? So that's what I just don't like about this. I feel like we're sacrificing basically the best possible manipulated outcome for the sake of like this feel that doesn't really feel any better. The last few years didn't draw any better. You could just draw that with the block final nights, and it doesn't really make the final feel any more electric either. I just feel like you just go from 1 to 1 to 1. So I've tolerated it. I was really incandescently mad when they did this, but I'm tolerating it. It ends up making for some very bizarre final night scenarios that I'll get into later. But, I just hope that after 2022 was such an abomination, just such a catastrophe and an embarrassment, at least this last year felt better with the scheduling. This year feels a bit closer with the format. And I just hope they go back to what works next year.
Yeah. Can you put your finger on why you think they did this in the sense of, is this just a method to overprotect people, or is this
No.
It's just
they're fucking thirsty. Yeah. They're desperate. They're incompetent. We've seen that. They don't know how to really run a company effectively, and this is the thing. They're grasping. In fact, since you brought up fencing, let me bring up a fencing analogy for you. So, me being a loser, I've come to the point in some bouts where, like, I'm one touch away from winning. And maybe I'm like 2 or 3 touches ahead of the other person, right? And they've got to score like 4 or 5 touches to beat me. And then that happens. And then I walk off the strip and I go to my coach and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And she'll tell me several times now that I was chasing the final touch, right? And when you chase the final touch, your technique is off, your balance is off. It just doesn't work. And that feels like what this company's doing. They're leaning, they're off balance, they're not centered. They're just grasping for whatever they did. It's a more sophisticated version of what they did during the pandemic, which was just an onslaught and torrent of Cork and Hall shows and just trying to run as many buildings as they can, trying to get as many tickets without really just thinking of pushing through. Now, it's easy for me to say that because it's not my money on the line and I'm not caught in that nightmare, what is it? Are they in a depression or a recession? Whatever the fuck they are over there. Whatever we're going to be having soon over here. That they may
Civil
be.
War.
What a weekend. All right. Anyway.
Joel tried to get me to throw a joke about that in my preview, by the way, and I came up with a great one, but I'm not doing it because he missed.
Well, yes. All right, good. So when you look back over the years, and we'll just say over the past, we'll call it 5 years, and G1 specifically, do you think that is I don't want to say the worst thing, but is it the one factor that you've experienced that has diminished your love of G1?
It would be if I wasn't so demented and did all these fucking stats. Like, Joel's had to deal with this a lot behind the scenes. He sees how long it takes me to sort of compile these. I guess if I wasn't doing that, maybe, but I still really enjoy seeing a round robin tournament play out because, I guess the Jacksonville tried it last year or something, but you don't really see that. It's not ingrained in American wrestling culture. It's something that feels uniquely Japanese, the G1 Climax, the Champions Carnival. So just seeing a round robin tournament, seeing the dynamics of it still excite me. I thought the format was abysmal. And I thought that the guys really the guys putting in effort, but it doesn't feel like they're delivering what looks like a G1 Climax match to the point where last year, Mikey Nichols was highlighted. Like Mikey fucking Nichols was a standout for people because of the intensity he brought in comparison to other people. One of the most milquetoast people ever to step foot in the ring actually compared to other people seemed like a traditional G1 Climax wrestler. So, no, I'm still enjoying it. There's just these quibbles because I'm just a self-centered prick.
All right. It's all right. You don't have to say, you're okay.
No, it's fine.
One thing that stood out to me, actually, when you sent over the notes and I was reading through them, the list of people from last year's G1 who are not returning: Hiroshi Tanahashi, Hikuleo, Keito Kiyomiya, Chase Owens, Kazuchika Okada, Will Ospreay, Tangaloa, Kenta, Yoshihashi, Tamatonga, Eddie Kingston, Mikey Nichols, Tomohiro Ishii, Alex Coughlin, Shane Hayes. Now, imagine, right, at the end of last year's G1, after it's just wrapped up, someone telling you, someone from the future saying, giving you that list of names and saying none of those people are going to be taking part in the 2024 G1 Climax. You'd be wondering what the fuck happened. Do you think one of the tour buses crashed and drove off a cliff or something? Like, the turnover's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, obviously losing Okada and Ospreay are like, cataclysmic losses, but also we're losing Chase Owens and it balances it out.
Yeah.
Right,
Are you excited to see?
Take us away, the Lord give us.
Oh, and by the
right.
way, I am never going to forgive them for not putting Kenta in this.
Okay.
I'm not going to bore you with that, but I am enraged by that we're going to miss on the latest chapter of Backstage G1 Kenta.
Granted, it was. You're focused on maybe the best part of G1 in the past maybe 2 years or so, but don't you think that's a net positive in the sense that you had guys that, I mean, listen, we all know pro wrestling and we all know the egos that are involved, and we all know that people don't necessarily always do what's right for the betterment of a company, and it's more about self-preservation. You had a string of. Yeah, well, right. I mean, you had a string of wrestlers willing to say, okay, you know what? If that's the direction the company's going in, great. Looks like I'm lying down. Like, does that give you any energy going in the freshness, in the uniqueness, in the turnover, as opposed to focusing on the finals and semifinals? Does the freshness give you new life?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I think I like stability, and I like that they've gotten rid of, like, it feels more stable, even though they've gotten rid of so many people, just because we all, I think, agree that most of those people who aren't in it this year shouldn't have been in it last year. And I think that where they've stabilized is putting people in that you do feel, unless they really are just every year somebody's going to be husked off the vine, that this is something that is stable, that, we'll see this going forward. In fact, I've got a little thesis here to drop on y'all. So, we're talking a lot about the Reiwa Three Musketeers plus Uemura, and sort of how this is their chance to now take the spotlight and actually, like, lead the company as far as like the essence of the company. And looking back, not that this is a great thesis, I'm sure somebody said it before, but the original, like, Musketeers were the ones that built the G1. When you look back at the original years of the G1, it's very heavily Musketeers, right as they were on the cusp. Like, the first G1 in 1991 was, like, right before Muto and Hashimoto started winning the title, and then Shono. If we're looking back that far and thinking that, with such a grandiose and overt way that they've said these are the new Three Musketeers, it does give me some sort of semblance of optimism that maybe they are trying to sort of, like, restart the wheel that way, where, in the 90s, it was the Musketeers and the G1 at its initial stage. And now that we're entering a new phase and a new era, it's these new Musketeers and this new G1. That's sort of where my mind goes at the moment, but they got to follow through with it.
Sure. And if or at least recent history is any indicator, yeah, it's hard to have confidence in that. But like I was saying on previous shows, it feels to me, anyway, just like what you described. Like for me, this G1 might be a G1 that we kind of plant a flag in the ground and say, okay, remember back 5 years ago or 8 years ago. And this G1 was kind of the start of it all. Do you think that is a reality in what we're saying? And then B, what would need to happen to help solidify that? Do you need one of those young guns to win?
I don't think so. And not yet. I think next year and the year after. So what is this, 34? So I think G1 35, 36 is really where we should start seeing sort of a hegemony of the Musketeers and Uemura and Oiwa if he's back, Newman and Bolton, who I think, adding those two in, I think it's exponentially sort of raised and elevated what you have going forward. Because you got to keep in mind, like, Oleg Bolton, the idea that we need to press him and push him harder because he's an old young lion, he is the same age as Tsuji. He is only a little bit older than Uemura. Like, these guys are sort of cultivating at the same point. I don't think they have to. I think at least one of them should go through. But, I think it's more just acquainting yourselves with these guys being in that place. And then obviously, when you look at the final nights and when we look at the final nights, I think those are set up, especially B Block, to really foment a lot of things that could pay off in the years to come.
Now, having had many conversations with you about the booking of the G1 and the historical trends and the data that you've been pouring hours and hours into, you've picked out a few really interesting things from it. And I don't want to steal the thunder of your articles because I really do think people should go away and read them. But could you sort of give us a snapshot of some of the most interesting takeaways from that in terms of what the historical data might suggest about things that could happen this year?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I do have to say, this is a self-flagellating exercise. Like, it's just me being impressed with myself. But I do hope that at some point, like, this does help people enjoy things more, that they're just aware of certain things that have happened or could happen or have happened. So there's really three things that I've sort of isolated here. So the Gato booking team took over in late 2008. So they've been booking G1 Climaxes since 2009. And they settled into that 2-block, 1 advance system in 2010. And they kept it going until 2022. 4 blocks, but still single advance. What's kind of interesting about last year is just seeing how double advance and then triple advance changes things so dramatically. And it's going to be interesting seeing how their booking patterns might adjust or how they just simply orient their booking patterns into a new situation. To show that, single advance from 2010 to 2022. So that gives us 28 blocks, 56 people who are in the block final match, on the final night, either the main event or the block final match. 52 of those guys entering that match had a realistic chance to win the block when it entered. 24 out of 28 blocks from 2010 to 2022 were winner take all when they started. That's like 80-something, 86, 87%. Like, they were very smitten with the idea of whoever has a chance to win on the undercard is fucked. And they're just going to lay everything out for the people that are in the main event. To the point where the people who were actually on the undercard had a realistic chance to win. There were 35 of them from 2010 to 2022. And those people lost 27 of those.
So just so I've got you right, that would only become an issue when they announced the match order for those cards. And then you could see who was on the undercard and be like, right, anyone who's not in the main event is not winning, basically.
Yeah. So taking the cards as they happened and looking at what could have happened. From 2010 to 2022, there were 27 or 35 people that could have won the block that weren't in the block final match, if that makes sense. And 27 of them lost. 3 of them drew. And then 5 of them won. And 4 of them won the block that way, and 1 of them, AJ Styles in 2014, won, but he wasn't taking out Okada, that runaway train in 2014. So what we see is that they just love that kind of match. And the change that you saw last year with 2 advance, and I hate it, but what happened was it wasn't people going for the block win in the block final match. It was people going for the advance. So actually 3 out of the 4 blocks last year actually had that situation. So they are still have quite an affinity for having that block final match mean something. So that's one thing to, I think, take a look at when you're doing your pick'ems, or if you're just sort of taking in the G1 and thinking about how this is going to go. And even like working backwards, thinking what is that final match going to be? And then when it happens, realizing that that is going to be worth something. Because last year it was A block was Hikuleo and Umino, and that was, Sonata had wrapped up the block, so that was just to advance. In B block, it was ELP and Osprey. Again, winner take all to advance. Okada wrapped it up underneath. Which, by the way, wrapping up the block underneath never happens in single advance. It's only happened once in the history of the G1. And I think it was fucking over Yuji Nagata, who they often fucked over back then.
Yeah.
You look at G1 scenarios, and Yuji Nagata just gets fucked every which way. C block, Evil and Shingo was a winner take all because Finley had wrapped it up. And then the odd one was Naito and Tanahashi. That's where you see something that you don't usually see. Tanahashi got eliminated by Sabre winning, so it was Naito going to win the block or take second place. So these winner-take-all final matches is definitely something to keep an eye on, because even though they're changing the formats, they are not changing their strategies. So that's one. What do you think of that?
Well, there was also another one that I noticed. I don't know if you were going to talk about this when we talk about the blocks, but about the likelihood of the winner of the G1 Climax coming from the same block as the IWGP champion at the time.
Oh, yeah. So that was something that just popped up as I was just doing some research this year. So the reason why I started looking at this was basically you have A block, which has, I think, a heavy amount of who you think would be the favorites to win the G1. Whereas
Okada's coming. He's heard what we're saying about him.
No, that was the same thing I dropped last week, as a matter of fact. But go ahead. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Just pretend you're younger than him and this look to beer. Oh. So I was thinking like B block, it would be a really forthright statement to have one of those people come from B block, right? Because it feels like the younger block, even though it's actually kind of even. It feels like the younger block. It definitely feels like the fresher block. Whereas I feel like most of the people that people are choosing to win, besides Tsuji, is in A block. But the odds are actually on the side of B block. So you think that there's been 34 G1 climaxes. 4 of them were single elimination tournaments, so we're just going to ignore those. In the G1 climax, there has only been 5 times where the G1 climax winner has come from the champions block. So they are 3-1-1. So Riki Choshu beat Shinya Hashimoto in 96, which I believe Choshu went undefeated that year. Kazuchika Okada defeated AJ Styles in 2014, and Ibushi beat Okada in 2019. He made it through that match unscathed. And then in 2002, Yuji Nagata, of course, beat Masahiro Chono. And then in 2009, Makabe and Tanahashi drew, which that was the infamous coin toss nonsense. So that's really all you see. Only 5 times in the history of this tournament has the champion and the G1 Climax winner actually shared a block. So that's something to keep in mind when you're putting those pick'ems in. It's not unheard of or unprecedented. I guess it happens about 15% of the time, but it is unusual.
Do you see that happening this year?
Well, I picked Zack Sabre Jr. I don't know why, because I know it's wrong. In fact, Joel, I was asking you about this. Joel, I was asking you, the manga, The Enigma of Emigari Fault?
Yes. So anyone who doesn't know, it's a cliff where people discover holes etched into the cliff that are exactly the same shape as their bodies. And so they go up to them and say, oh my goodness, this coal is exactly the same shape as my body. I should go inside it. And they end up going inside the cliffs. And I won't spoil the ending, but that's the premise of it, basically.
Yeah, and it's Junji Ito, which is not my really cup of tea. Like, that's my wife's sort of stuff. She's like into Berserk and stuff. But when it's a really
taste, respect.
Oh, she's got like a 2-foot guts that was ridiculously expensive. Like, she's into all that garbage.
Hell yeah. Should get her on the podcast.
She's right here. She's not happy with me. Ooh, you don't want to mess with the Dutch. So, what the fuck was I talking about? It's Zack Sabre Jr.
The cliff with the holes in it.
Right. You know, when the wife gives you that look, you just go into the defensive position and shut the brain off. So, oh boy.
The brain's never on to begin with.
So, that manga, like, it's sort of like, I don't know if Junji Ito meant it to be this way, but it does, like, serve as this allegory for, like, the things that we know are wrong or destructive to us, but we just are compelled to do them anyway. So, like, the people know that they don't know what's going to happen, and that probably they're going to be horribly disfigured or die within this hole. That's their silhouette or shape, but they just can't resist doing it. And it's sort of like as a commentary on that impulse that we have to do things that we know are wrong or that we know won't pay off, but we just can't resist doing it. That was everybody who picked Shibata in the New Japan Cup or the G1 Climax for like 5 straight years. And then we almost killed him when he actually finally won it, or one of them. And I feel like Zack Sabre Jr. is inheriting that mantle. Like, I know that they're not going to do it. I cannot, like, rationally envision Zack Sabre Jr. headlining a Wrestle Kingdom main event. But I just kept fucking clicking his name and just going deeper into that hole. And I'm not changing it. I'm in there. Zack Sabre Jr.
Well, now you know how it feels as an England fan.
Is he really English anymore? Like,
That's
I think
true. He's probably transcended Englishism. He's better than all of us now.
He might. So I hope it's actually somebody from B Block, because I think that would be exciting, and I hope it's not Suji. Actually, I hope it's somebody totally novel. But I do think that if this is a year that they are going to do it, this would be a year to do it just because of the names in A Block. But I would love the statement that it would send if they did go with somebody from B Block, and especially Oleg Bolton.
All right, can you talk to us about booking strength, please? Because that's something you run a lot of numbers on, and you think it's a pretty reliable indicator of how people will perform in the G1 Climax.
I do. Now, this is where I'm just engulfed in sort of self-loathing, because I have no idea, number one, if anybody reads my stuff. I mean, you guys told me they do. Thankfully, nobody bothers me about anything that I write. Praise or...
That'll end after the show.
Fuck. So I don't know if these numbers mean anything to anybody, but one of the things that I really like tracking is card placement average, which is basically like you take the match, like if they're in match number 8, you take that and you take all those and average them out, and that sort of tells you what their booking strength is. Obviously, if they're low and they're like a mid-carder or a prelim guy, obviously the number's low. And then obviously if you're Okada, Naito, Tanahashi, you're always high. Basically, what we have seen, or what I've seen, is that booking strength is pretty much the strongest correlation that I've seen to people being in the final. There's been some outliers, especially before they really settled into the single block night stuff. But here's the numbers, the booking strength rank of every finalist since 2010. First place and 5th place. Third place and 11th place. That was a weird one. That was Naito. Second place and 15th place. That was Anderson. Forget that one. First place and 7th place. And then 2014 is really where we see it consolidate. First place and 3rd place. First place and 3rd place. 5th place and 5th place. Second place and 3rd place. 3rd place and 5th place. Second place and 6th place. 3rd place and 10th place. That was Sonata. 2021, first place and 3rd place. 2022, we should just strike from the record, but it was 2nd place and 18th place because the way they fucked up the whole scheduling, Osprey was actually 18th. But by going back to the sort of double night schedule last year, 1st place and 3rd place. And it's not just finalists. What I see is that, I kind of track the block finalists, that person who's in that block final match, or who advanced. And last year, there were 12 people. Like, there were the 8 people that advanced into the playoff. And then there were 4 people that were in the block final match that didn't make it. those 12 people are all within the top 15 of booking strength last year. The only people that didn't make it was Tamatonga at 4, Suji at 7, Cobb at 8, and that's it. So they're telling us something with the booking strength.
Yeah.
And I think if you see the names this year, it would make sense too, because like this year it goes Naito, Shingo, Suji, Finley, Takeshita, Evil, Saber. Like if you're looking for who you think's going to go to the final, and I'd be happy to be wrong on this, I think that's where you want to look. 2 of those 7.
Is there a misguided thought that G1 is a platform that makes stars, or with that data being in place, stars are already established? Just follow the breadcrumbs.
I think that's where it gets tricky, because really when you look at it, Tanahashi, Naito, and Okada have so thoroughly and ubiquitously dominated the last 12 years that like only some people have squeezed through. But I think we have seen that, Naito in 2011 coming through, and then 2013, I think, was an example of that. I don't know what the fuck they were doing with Carl Anderson in 2012. But then like 2016, like, I don't really recall, maybe you can help me with this, Damon. I just don't remember if there was a sense that Kenny Omega had a chance to win that year. Do you remember any of that?
It wasn't like, yeah. I mean, I don't think he's ever been in a G1 where it's been, you could write him off 3/4 of the way through. He was still in. I don't know if if there was an overlying booking sense that he was the guy to eventually win, but yeah, I know the argument is always there that he's always been the guy that's, he's not a junior. That was always the running mantra of, he's not here to be a junior. So I don't think if necessarily that tournament he was like, just, we were pointing fingers and saying, yep, that's it. That's the guy. But in the same breath, I think he was always in the mix.
Yeah, I just don't remember anything about it, about what it felt like coming into it. I mean, I remember more just like the feud with Elgin and then getting hurt and sort of losing the Intercontinental title. So, but Omega, I feel like was a definite one. And, if I was tracking this back then, I probably would have taken it more seriously because he was 5th overall. And in fact, 5th tied with Goto. And remember that sort of backdoor nonsense that Goto pulled to make his way to the final there. Although, of course, Shibata was 4th, and we know that he was always a failure in these things. But yeah, no, I think I guess they were kind of doing that with Sonata in 2020, right? That was sort of a message that they were actually serious about this sort of blank-faced idiot. And then, now we see with this year, because obviously we've gotten rid of, like, you look at the guys who were in it last year, Okada's gone. Sonata's probably being downcycled. Osprey's gone. Tanahashi's not even in it. Hikuleo is off to the fucking warehouse. So there's a lot of spaces that have opened up for somebody to make that leap. And I think we see a number of them, highly ranked in the booking. The only ones that are sort of weird is Uemura's 8th. So I think he's on the cusp of that. Amino's 10th, which I just think is sort of just the way the numbers play out. And, new leader of the War Dogs, Jake Lee, is 13th. So that would be another one, an outlier to keep an eye on. But I think the booking strength is going to show that they book them strongly and then they sort of culminate it when they have to.
Mm-hmm. And another thing about the booking is it's been quite tropey in recent years, where I feel Ghetto's got a bit heavy-handed with the coming from behind win, to the point at which people I was complaining, particularly in Best of the Super Juniors. I thought it was telegraphing the Hiromu comeback win, and of course that didn't turn out to be the case. So you have a bit of data on those the wrestlers who start off on the winning streaks and then end up not being so successful, and the wrestlers who start off on the losing streaks and then come from behind to win the block.
I do. In fact, this is hot off the fucking presses. This is something that I just did it last night, which is probably why I didn't get any sleep. But trust me, I implore you, I am a normal person. So I went through back to 2009, right? I'm not going back before then. I'm just looking at this booking crew when their first G1 Climax in 2009 to now. And I decided, because I do actually have a thing that keeps track of this, every win and loss streak that's 4 or more. So like 4 wins in a row or more, 4 losses in a row or more.
Nice.
I thought that this was going to be easy, even though I was going back like 16 years or 15. It happened 129 fucking times.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So let me make sure I got this right. What was the number? 5 was the
4
5 or more? 4 or more.
4.
Okay. 4 or more. 120 times?
Yeah. Yep. So there's 66 times that somebody's won 4 matches in a row. And keep in mind, it wasn't always 20 matches, or 20 guys. Like some of these are like, they only have 7 matches, 6 matches, but 66 times somebody's won 4 times in a row, and 63 times somebody has lost 4 times in a row. Now, I sent Joel sort of my codification of this list where I pared it down. Most of these are just fucking nonsense that don't actually matter. Like if here's a good one. We'll find a good one. Like Evil starts 2-0, then goes 0-4, then finishes 1-2, and then finishes in 5th place. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. He's in 5th place. He's a loser. But looking at some of the wild ones, and especially what Joel's talking about, they don't do it the come from behind win as often as you think. I think the reason why it's so impressed in our brains and it's been like so like drilled into us that they do that is that, like most things that they do, they fucking did it so excessively for such a short amount of time that it's just hard to get it out of your head. As far as like traditional, you start with a bunch of losses and then you win with a bunch of losses. You've got Naito in 2011 started 0-3 and then finished 6-0. There's a whole bunch where guys start like 2-2, 2-3, and then run off wins. But I'm just going pure win streak, loss streak, or loss streak, win streak. So the Naito in 2011, and then you don't see it again until 2019, which is fine, except both fucking block winners did it. Ibushi in the A block started out 0-2 and then finished 7-0. And then Jay White in the B block started 0-3 and finished 6-0. And if that's not enough, there also is, I don't know what to call it, like a loss from ahead, where you start with a bunch of wins and then you lose. Same fucking blocks.
The Shelton Benjamin special.
Oh, this asshole drove me up a wall last night trying to keep track of his useless stats. So, as I said, Ibushi 0-2, 7-0 in A block. He faced Kenta on the final night, who started 4-0 and ended 0-5. In the B block, with Jay White going through 0-3, then 6-0, Jon Moxley famously started 5-0 and then finished 0-4. And then they couldn't help themselves the next year because Sonata did the exact same thing the next year. He started 0-3 and then finished 6-0 to come out of nowhere to win. And they're not done with it because Naito in 2022 did the same thing. He started 0-2, finished 4-0 to win C block. And then last year, our buddy Hikuleo, he advanced to everybody's dismay. He started 0-3 and finished 4-0. So, in the totality, they don't do it as often as you think. It's just that they're just doing it a whole fucking lot recently.
And it feels like when they do it, it doesn't necessarily ever mean, and maybe rarely, that it's, okay, keep your eye on this guy. It's more of a leveling of the points as opposed to this guy's going on a hot streak, keep an eye on him because we expect him to be in the finals and stuff like that. Yeah.
Joel, Damon, you seem to have a decent enough memory about 2016 G1.
I don't remember what they did this morning, so go ahead.
I'm going to ask you anyway.
Okay.
Do you recall having any sense that Togi Makabe was going to win the 2016 G1?
No.
Or that Togi Makabe even mattered as a wrestler or a human being?
No, I do. I mean, like, he was still relevant, I think. I think very much so. I don't remember him being like a front runner though, like at the time. I really don't. But that being said, like I don't think that's one of those things where you're like, you should be overly shocked by. I think the one that in modern G1, and we'll say, 10 years, 12 years, what have you. I think Carl Anderson was probably one of them that you're just kind of like scratching your head of, ooh, what do we, this seems a real out of place kind of thing. I don't want to even go with like Hiroki Goto at that time. I'll tell you one that was a little bit surprising was Naito's first one. That actually was a little bit surprising to me.
In 2013?
Was it 13? I wanted to say 12, 13. Yeah, early, whatever. Yeah. To me, I probably, in hindsight, now that I'm really thinking of it, I probably shouldn't be, because they were shoehorning him in every opportunity. So maybe that was one of those forced hand, we're fucking going for it, close your eyes and bite your teeth.
I've got something for that, my friend.
There's been a lot, though. But see, here's the thing, though. So all those data points I fucking love them. Like, I love hearing shit like that. But I just keep coming back to, man, there's such a level playing field right now that I feel like all of those booking tropes that they may have leaned on, and maybe they'll continue to. Why not? But I just feel like with this clean slate, they literally have a clean sheet of paper in front of them, and they can be as creative as they want to be. I guess they don't have the limitations of guys that we, A, need to protect, B, we need to keep strong, C, they're a title holder, so we can't have too many defenses, et cetera, et cetera. Like, it doesn't feel like that is the energy in this one. It feels like clean slate, let's fucking get chaotic.
Yeah, it feels like one of the more unpredictable fields. I can't look at this and be like, yes, nailed on, these are the two guys in the final. It feels like it's a lot more question marks this year, which is a good thing.
No, and like, just to clarify this thing, like, there's been the 129 win-loss streaks, but I could only really find 19 of those that I thought were relevant.
Mm.
And by the way, Makabe started 4-0 and finished 0-5 that year.
Wow.
By the way, can I just say about Naito in 2013, when he won it, one of the most fucking ludicrous finishes, because he actually ended up winning that block in a 6-way tie with Minoru Suzuki, Carl Anderson, Shelton Benjamin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Yuji Nagata. And usually when you see these things, it's like, like a couple guys are like 3-2 within the group and 2-3 and stuff like that, and then you break it down from there. Yeah, not him. He was 5-0 within that group.
Wow.
Those were all of his 5 wins. He lost to everybody else outside that tie group. So they were putting their thinking caps on for that one.
Yeah. I'm always amazed by I mean, again, we're pointing out similarities and we're pointing out patterns, and for people to kind of geek out a little bit with their G1 picks. But it is like sitting down and booking out an entire year and having that in the back of your mind, and then doing a G1 type tournament in the middle of your calendar year. I mean, I think that kind of lends to the fact that pro wrestling companies don't do it, just because it doesn't seem like the easiest thing to do on a yearly basis.
It's a fucking nightmare just to analyze it.
Right.
I couldn't even imagine actually creating it from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm just fascinated by the fact that we are, and again, I could be dead wrong. Who knows what's going to happen in a month's time or 2 months' time. But it feels like right now we have this clean sheet, clean slate, and they have the opportunity to be creative. There's really not a lot that necessarily would be holding them back. Aside from Naito, do you think that there's really a lot of booking roadblocks, we'll call it, in just kind of having that crazy, chaotic G1?
No, I mean, especially, it's one of the things that really frustrates me about multi-people advancing is that I feel like if you think back to 2016 when you had Goto and Omega, to me, it wouldn't have felt as impactful if Omega, won a semifinal to get there first. Like, he beat Naito in that incredible match, and then he went straight into beat Goto. I feel like, though, one minor advantage of that is that it really opens them up to do whatever the fuck they want because, even though I decry the blocks not meaning much, it does allow them to be less precious about putting somebody through or just going with the status quo of just pushing through Naito, Ibushi, Tanahashi, or Okada over and over and over, leading to, Ibushi's insides just fucking disintegrating because of it, or Okada fleeing, or Tanahashi being sort of a husk being pushed around by the wind in front of us, or Naito aging 20 years longer than he should. They can do whatever they want. They've got the leeway to do that.
Yeah. Do you have any stats? And I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't. But if you do, great. I would love to hear. I'm curious to see or hear information on guys outside of New Japan entering a G1, like Noah representation, or again, we don't have a lot of AEW data, but do they usually play a factor? I think people get more excited by the names being in than the actual end results of them being in. So I guess one, do they really move are they relevant in G1 toward the end and everyone is thinking possibly they could, squeeze them in a finals, or usually is it just more of, hey, we're excited you're here and you're 500?
I've actually never thought of that, but I can put this together kind of on the spot for you.
Ooh.
So that's actually a good idea. I like the idea of the Super Juniors actually being the place where the outsiders come in and differentiating it that way. But I also think Takeshita is the best wrestler in the world. And I don't know what we would count Jake Lee as right now. But there's usually some sort of relevance. So, like, again, if I'm only going back to 2010, Go Shiozaki was in the 2010 G1. And he actually was threatening to win.
Yeah.
Well, so he was on the block final night. All he needed to do was beat Shinsuke Nakamura, and he needed a couple tiebreakers to go his way, and they did. But him and Nakamura had a draw, and then Kojima won the block. Because if they would have won, they would have actually kind of fucked over Kojima, but they had a draw. But so Shiozaki was threatening on the final night.
Was that the same year that Tanahashi was in Champions Carnival? Why did that pop in my head as a thing of Tanahashi going deep in Champions Carnival? Maybe I'm just like having data all mixed up, but I'll have to look at that. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to cut you off.
No. That's actually an interesting point. I off the top of my head, I don't know. I don't remember all of them, but just the ones that sort of stand out in my mind. Like I'm thinking about Mirafuji in 2016. He didn't really threaten on the final night. He did have a scenario where all he had to do was beat Goto, have Fale lose, and then have Okada and Tanahashi end in either Okada winning or a draw. And actually it did end up in a draw, but he lost to Goto. So if he actually would have beaten Goto, he would have won that block. But he had already beaten Okada by that point, so that was his sort of trinket for that one. So it does seem like I'd have to dig into it a bit deeply, but just those two stand out to me. There really haven't been a lot of outsiders in the last several years, is the thing. Yeah. But those two, as far as prominent ones, were, they had a chance to win their block on the final night.
Gotcha. Can we dig into the blocks then? Because let's have a look at A block first. So here we've got Shota Umino, Tetsuya Naito, Shingo Takagi, Sanada, Great Khan, Zack Sabre Jr., Gabe Kidd, Jake Lee, Evil, and Callum Newman. So this is a really interesting one because obviously we got the world champion Naito in there, who conceivably, like I could see him not even making the top three because I don't think he needs to at this point. I think there's enough depth in that block where he could sit that out, and I think it would be all the more interesting for it. But then there's the caveat of you mentioning that statistically it's less likely for someone from A block to be winning the whole G1. And I'm looking at Shota Umino and Zack Sabre Jr. as two of my favourites to win the whole tournament. And the fact that they're in the same block as Naito, meaning they would have to wrestle Naito at least once, kind of put some doubt into the back of my mind as to whether Shota and Zack Sabre Jr. are your guys there. And, there's other guys like Shingo, he could easily be in those playoffs at the end of the tournament. He's a guy that you can rely on for exciting matches, but it does feel that he is in that sort of never open weight title tier at the moment, whereby I'm not sure there's long-term value in him being put into a spot like that. Sonata, that's a coin flip for me, because you say he's being downcycled. So yeah, I could see him just, ending up with 10 points, 12 points and not making that top three. But he's also lost twice to Naito this year, which makes me think he's not going to lose to Naito a third time. And maybe they see this as an opportunity to heat him back up and have him, I don't know, win the block or something. That would be a shock to me if they did that. I hope they don't, but I could see them doing that. Great Khan, I think he's trash. Like, he could 4.6 points. He's not doing anything. Although I think he needs to put in a shift. Otherwise, the narrative on him is going to be set and it's not going to be good. Zach got to be one of the favourites. Gabe Kidd, very excited to see what he does and how many points he gets, because he's been a guy where I feel that his talent and my investment and excitement in him has not matched where his push is with the company. But now I think those things are starting to dovetail, because the company are getting behind him and giving him singles titles and big spots and big matches, cross-promotional matches as well. He's been working in lots of other companies to represent New Japan. So I'm really interested to see, is this a guy that they see going deep in a Grade 1 Climax? Jake Lee, that's really interesting now, because apparently he's joined the War Dogs. So he says he's left Noah. Does that mean he's a full-time New Japan guy? So is this a guy who's going to get the big push as a guy that New Japan have just signed? And I don't know if he is signed. I don't know what his contract status is. But if he was a Noah outsider, I think, okay, like 8 points, 10 points, he's not going to do anything significant. But if he is the big signing for the War Dogs now and is going to be prominently featured in the company, then that's one to keep an eye on as well. Evil, former world champion, you never know with him when they're going to heat him up. I do feel that they did that last year, and I don't think they're going to do it again this year. But A Block seems to be very, very unpredictable for me. So, yeah, what are your thoughts? Who or what stands out for you in A Block?
Well, I got something for you, Joel, about that I sort of shared you the other day. So if you were thinking about A Block, I mean, listen, I agree with you, all of you, both of you, with what we've been saying here as far as like, I very much appreciate as somebody with a couple history degrees, like history sustaining and history being confirmed. But I find it very exciting with the idea that they could go a different route or break the patterns. So this is something that they're probably going to do. I hope they don't, just for the sake of doing something different, especially when you look at who's in that A Block. But if you're thinking about the three people coming out of A Block, you probably need to think about it as Naito and two other guys. Because in two advanced systems, which is 95, 2001 to 2007, 2009, and 2023, the champion has taken part in 8 of them. Fuckface Fujita sat out twice. And the champion has advanced 6 times. So the champion is 6-2 advancing out. And I'll give you one guess. Nagata was one of them that got fucked over and didn't make it. But 6 times they made it out. So, and then, didn't really challenge after that. They either lost in the semifinal, usually, or like Sonata last year lost in the quarterfinal. But the odds are when you have that many people going through, especially a 3 advance, it's very hard for me to imagine that the champion's not going through. Especially since, like I'm saying, they're just so goddamn thirsty for more houses. I just can't imagine if that's your motivation for doing this and fucking up the traditional G1 format, why wouldn't you have your biggest draw? The guy who the numbers just fell off once you took the title off of him. Coincidentally or not. So it seems to me like it's Naito and then everybody else, whether he wins the block or not. It seems like, I mean, it's a very bizarre system this year too, where it's self-contained. It's like that, Damon, it's the NHL system, right? Where you don't actually see people outside of your division.
Yeah, like maybe one. Yeah.
Oh, I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's what they're doing. So I can't imagine somebody beating Naito twice. So I'm imagining somebody like Naito's beating somebody and then losing to them in the playoff to sort of build that credibility. I don't know. That's what I've got for Naito. I think he's
Can I
definitely
jump in? Because also another factor here is that typically in the G1, you get guys who pin the champion in the block get a title challenge sometime in the autumn. So can you, and Damon for that matter, pick one or maybe even two guys in a block who could conceivably pin Naito but not win the G1 and get an autumn title challenge?
So the one thing that kind of sticks out for me when it comes to A block is who main events. And I don't know if there's any significance in the amount of main events a particular wrestler has, and that might correlate with the booking strength, so to speak. Naito's 4. Yota Tsuji has 4 main events. Zach 1. That's weird. If we're trying to kind of give Zach a little something for the summer, but also glaringly for Yota Tsuji at 4 main events. I'd have to imagine, Joel. I mean, look, who knows? But if we're talking A block, what do we got? Zach. I would think if they had any guts, they would say, okay, fuck it. Shota's going to get a win. I would think Zach in that main event. Well, no, who does Zach wrestle in that main event? First, may I ask? I don't know. I don't have the answer. But of those 4, who's Naito wrestling in those main events? Because I think that's where your answer is going to be. Obviously, I think it's going to be one of those 4. And I don't have the main event lists in front of me. I just know the number.
I've got it for you if you need it.
Oh, please. I knew I could count. Let's hear it.
All right, so Zach is facing Shingo on night 9 in Osaka, not Edion.
Okay.
And by the way, while I was listening with rapt attention, of course, but I was also counting, and I actually was, but I was counting up the amount of times that somebody beat the champion and didn't get a title shot.
Ishii.
It's happened 30 times in the history of the G1.
Holy moly, wow.
And I've got to sort of, like, this is just something I just did in the last few weeks, is I went through every loss the champions had in the G1. There's a lot of weird ones where guys don't get title shots until, like, February or March. Like, that sort of pre-briefcase era G1 stuff, but there is quite a bit. And I just want to point out, the best one of all is that Chono beat Fujita in the final, and then his title shot was the triple threat match, or the 3-way match with Fujita, Lesnar, and Chono.
Oh, wow.
And you know who took the pin in that one.
Well, right. That's odd. I can't... Wow. Huh. All right. So then the idea
Naito,
of this...
Yeah. Well, I was just, you wanted Naito main events, right?
Yeah. You have them.
So he's the main event on night 1 against Shingo, which I think that seems like
that's an easy one. I could see Shingo wins that, and then that's, I don't know, King of Pro Wrestling or whatever.
And then honestly, I feel like the next one might be a Naito loss too, because actually I think it's a given now. Night 3 in Hiroshima, Tetsuya Naito versus fucking the steampunk guy Jake Lee.
Jake Lee. And that's his only main event.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Naito already has a singles win over Jake Lee, yes?
Yes. Yeah,
okay,
he beat him this year.
Jake Lee
conceivably get his win back there.
Right.
Let's see. Naito he's also main eventing night 5 against Evil.
That's another one I had penciled in. Like you could see them going back to that. They've not done that for a while, have they?
God, what if Naito just loses every fucking match?
Wow.
The rest of the year is just him having to defend his title in a gauntlet of everyone else in A block.
Well, actually, that's one of my dream scenario for this G1. They like to have like these like October surprises like on the penultimate nights. So like you remember a few years ago when Cobb and Okada basically went like undefeated through the blocks.
Yeah.
And then Tamatanga like beat Okada out of nowhere the night before the final night. Well, Naito on the night before the final night is facing Callum Newman.
Oh my.
I'd flip my fucking lid if Callum Newman got that win. Opening match. Why not?
Wow.
Why not?
Wow. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we're going all in, let's go to fuck all in. I mean, I think to me, the Jake Lee one, I would bet the mortgage. You know, I'm going in, all in. The Shingo one, absolutely, you could say. Like, you could make an argument either way. Wow.
And then Evil and then Sonata.
Evil,
Night 5, night 7.
Evil and Sonata, I'm hoping not Evil, and I'm hoping not Sonata, just because even though it in reality it hasn't been that recent, it feels like it's been that recent, right? I mean, does anybody get excited over Sonata and Naito again? Boy, I'll tell you what, Jake Lee, I think that's a slam dunk definite.
Yeah.
And Shingo, I think too. I think not, maybe not a slam dunk definite, but yeah, I think you got yourself your autumn programs, not for nothing.
I will say this though, Naito's got to win some main event so he can do a roll call. The people need a roll call. So he's not going to be losing all.
Yeah,
I think Evil and probably Sonata. Like, I just don't see Sonata doing it. I think they're sending the message that Sonata's not there, but I could be wrong because they want to do that fucking light up thing at some point.
I think Shingo and Jake Lee are safe bets for that upset. What about in terms of sort of end of block advancement scenarios? Like, how do you have a scenario in your mind for how the end of A block plays out? Looking at the fixtures on the final night, who's finishing first, second, third, and who's going through to the final from those two matches?
I do. So me and you have argued about this a lot over the years because I'm a big proponent of predictability. I don't give a fuck. Like, my favorite was 2019, where the only two people that had a chance to win was Ibushi and Okada. And you knew that on night one because ultimately you just get there and it just builds to the best moment. And we don't really care about the undercard. This year, though, they've balanced it out really well. Naito's against Great Khan. I don't know what the fuck to make of that match. Also, because there's three people advancing, like, it's possible that, 60% of these matches are going to have somebody move on. So just looking at that, like, I can eliminate probably Callum Newman and Gabe Kidd as a match that's going to produce any relevance for the thing.
They're both I'd love English, to see. So of course they're not going to be in any championship picture.
Oh, Jesus Christ. If the match even ends. I think Shingo and Jake Lee is certainly feeling like the prominent main event possibility. But again, like I said, like, in multi-advanced G1s, a lot of these matches aren't even for the block. It's just for the advance. So Naito could just beat Great Khan to win the block on the undercard and then just sort of, and then just leave Shingo and Jake Lee to fight for second or third place. Or literally to fight for who's second and who's third. It's really hard to look at Sonata and Zack Sabre Jr. and not think that's also a winner goes on scenario. But
that's why I'm always hopping on the Zack train, in the sense of, man, I just think that's such a prominent, feature-rich match. That
Sonata's had his moment, hasn't he?
Right.
And it's time that will be a good one to draw the line in the sand. Right, Sonata's getting downcycled. Zack's your guy.
But then you wonder, what about Shota? But, I do think when you look at past nights,
on the last night,
that's the thing. Like, when you've got House of Torture, basically you know that your fall is going to be imprisoned by House of Torture. So that's probably where he's going. Although obviously, like, they had the title shot earlier in the year and now there's nothing on the line. So I don't know what consequences or stakes there could possibly be for those two fucking around for 3 months, but it seems like the kind of thing to distract Shota from anything prominent for a while.
Well, he's had his big feud already. Didn't he? He wrestled Evil earlier in the year for the Never title, didn't he? And lost.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, so he's got to get his win back against Evil here. And he defeats Evil, overcomes House of Torture, and books his place
Super babyface. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if Shota Umino's winning that, if Shota Umino's winning that match, he's not going to win the match and not advance. So, if he's winning, he's got to advance. But then, who are we kicking out? Sanada, Zach, Shingo Lee. You know, like
I'd say
one
Shingo
of those
Lee.
guys.
Like the way I've got it is, I don't know in what order yet, but Shota, Zach, and Naito as my top three, and I'm leaning more towards Zach being top, and then having Shota against Naito as the second versus third. Although I'm not 100% confident about that.
I've got Zach and Naito and Lee. And Lee was just sort of a like mathematical aberration, but now I'm feeling a lot better about it. I don't know. That A block is really tough.
Yeah. I mean, I think the signing.
Damon, give us your three.
Yeah. Jake, I'm right there with you. I think Jake has. I think there's significance with the angle that occurred on the Noah show. I think Naito's got to be in the mix, right? And I keep looking at that Zack Sonata and I can't hand wave, so I got to think he's in the mix too. So yeah, I mean, if the narrative is true that we don't necessarily make stars, and if we're kind of holding on to history a little bit, maybe it's not Shota's time. A, I find fascinating. I also find B, maybe not as equally as fascinating, but like the idea of Yota Tsuji having 4 main events. The idea of an outsider coming in and making waves and hopefully doing big things, because I think everyone knows that a 20-year-old stud that's going to enter his first G1 with a little bit of a name to boot. That's a sexy thing for G1, and that's a sexy thing for New Japan. And the fact that there is an opportunity to lean in that, whether that's him against Yota to find a way into a finals or what have you. Like, to me, that seems like the most logical steps where we're going with this. And I think Yota and Takeshita has to be in the final mix.
Okay, yeah, it's a good chance to then pop into B block there, where we've got El Phantasmo, Hiroki Goto, Yota Tsuji, Yuya Uemura, Jeff Cobb, Henare, David Finlay, Ren Narita, Konosuke Takeshita, and Oleg Boltin. El Phantasmo, I don't think he's going to do anything significant. He's doing a lot of this, tweets and videos about him having no friends and being very sad, but I'm filing that under the category of New Japan guys just saying stuff. I don't think it's something that they're going to follow through on in any sort of dramatic or meaningful way. Goto, yeah, I mean, 6 points if he's lucky. I think he's lucky to be there, to be honest. Yota Tsuji, I feel like he is one of your main guys. I could see him getting all the way to the final. He's talking a lot about being New Japan Cup winner and G1 winner in the same year. And look, maybe this is the year they pull the trigger on that, but I definitely expect him to be in the top
I've got
3.
stats for that, Joel.
Oh,
I've got stats for that. If you want to know how New Japan Cup winners tend to do in the G1 Climax, obviously, none of them has ever won it. Let me pull it up. So, going back to, and this one goes way back, because obviously we're going back to 2000 so it's not usually good. The closest anyone's ever come was Nakamura in 2014, made it to the final, and of all people, Yuji Nagata in 2007 made it to the final. They generally don't make it out of their block. Just running down the list: 4th place, 2nd place, lost semifinal. 2nd place, lost semifinal. 6th place out of 7. 3rd place, 4th place, 7th place, tied for 3rd. 6th place, won the block but lost the final. That's Nakamura. 7th place, 2nd place, did not participate because that's when Shibata was getting his brain removed. 3rd place, 2nd place, 2nd place, did not participate because Ospreay's neck exploded. 2nd place, and then last year, Sonata won the A block and then lost the quarterfinal. Some of this is that just the New Japan Cup winner comes in as the champion, but most of the time, they've got their thing. So this is certainly a chance to make a grandiose statement for Tsuji.
Yeah, and if there was anyone they were going to pull the trigger on doing that, I think he could be that guy. Yuya, bit of a dark horse. I don't see him factoring into the top 3, but I think he is someone who has a lot of pressure on him to just deliver great matches because, there are people putting him on fraud watch. I wouldn't go that far because I think he's very, very talented, but he needs to have a good outings in this G1. Jeff Cobb's always a guy
Hold on, Joel, can I stop you there
should...
for just a second? Sorry to interrupt, but who the fuck is putting Yuya on fraud watch?
About half the members of our Discord, but
those fuckers! Listen,
they're loons. So.
Listen. I still believe he's the chosen one. I don't know why that they're like this sort of thought exercise to see how much you could, like how austere you can present somebody, and still try to see if they can get over. But he's the one. He got drop kicked for a reason, even though that fucker's gone.
Yeah, I still subscribe to that. I still think there's a huge amount of upside there. I'm just not sure that this is the tournament where they pull the trigger on it. But he's booked relatively strongly in your card placement thing, which did raise an eyebrow. Jeff Cobb is a guy who I always feel should be booked strongly in these things and should be a contender to be in playoffs. But I think the fact that he's got the TV title probably precludes him from that this time. Hanare as well, being never champion, I think that means he's unlikely to factor into the last stage of the tournament. But it's a good block for him. I'm excited to just see him going toe-to-toe with guys like Takeshita and Tsuji. David Finlay, I think, has got to be a strong favourite to get out of the block, if not get to the finals outright. I think he's someone who probably would have been booked very strongly in the New Japan Cup had he not had his mysterious illness. So he's someone that I think is going to be one to watch here. Ren, probably not. Takeshita absolutely should be, but I don't know how committed they're going to be given that he is an outsider. I think he'll be booked really strongly, and I think he should be a guy who makes the latter stages, semi-finals, or even the final. But given that he is a contracted AEW talent, he's a guy that I don't know. I think probably the semi-final is about as far as he goes. And
Wrestle
Oleg Bolton,
Universe. Wrestle Universe. Wrestle Universe. Wrestle Universe.
What's Wrestle Universe? What that's the subscription thing for
what is that? Isn't that what am I? What's the show after
Dynasty.
Wrestle Kingdom? What did I say?
Wrestle Dynasty.
Wait, what did I say? You know what I mean. I don't know. I just feel like, you got a building to fill. I understand you're bringing in a ton of other promotions. I understand. But, I mean, I feel like you got something pre-baked right here when it comes to G1. And, he's going to be featured prominently. I don't know. I'm curious if he's just a rental. I guess that's my biggest. I'm just curious if he's a rental. But, I'm kind of in agreement with you, Joel. Even though the data is telling me don't do it, you fucking dork, like I just see Yota Tsuji doing it. I really, honestly, truly do. And it's probably more my heart than my brain. But I just think it's significant. I see those 4 main events. I see an opportunity to make. They always like to have that little thing where they give a guy their thing. The first, combined champion, the most G1, whatever it is. Everyone had their little thing. This could be that little thing for him. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, this is how I see it playing out. I think Finlay wins the block, so he goes straight through to the final. Then I see Tsuji and Takeshita being in third place and second place. Mm-hmm. And I think Takeshita beats Tsuji. They're wrestling... Is it on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken? So I think Takeshita beats Tsuji there, and then Tsuji gets his win back in the third place playoff. So then we get Tsuji against Finlay in the block final, and then I think Tsuji beats Finlay in that, and I think Tsuji goes all the way to the final, which may, in the autumn, or maybe with Wrestle Kingdom, set up something between Finlay and Tsuji for the global title. But yeah, I can't really look past Tsuji and Finlay as 2 out of my 3, and probably Takeshita as the 3rd to be making it out those blocks.
I'm with you. actually absolutely with you. Like for B, it's but again, somebody could come to the table, Joel, and somebody can come to the table. Jim Michael could come to the table with something else, and I could be like, that makes sense. Like that's why I think I'm most excited about this G1 than I have been in years. That's the fact that it does feel, at least in some instances, that this is wide open. It's exciting. It's fun. I love it.
What have you got for B block then, J. Michael?
Well, one thing that stands out to me is I'm just so utterly baffled by where they're booking Hanare. Like, I know you put him up against these guys, but he is a champion, and that just sort of opened me up to looking at just how disrespected Never Champions have been in this tournament. They don't usually get results. In fact, I've got that right here. Going back to 2013, did not participate. Tanaka tied for 6th, 8th, 6th, 4th, 8th, 7th, 9th. Jay White didn't participate in 2021. Carl Anderson, remember that fucking fiasco, didn't participate in 2022. And David Finlay actually won the damn block last year. But what's weird is that Never Champions are usually booked, or they were booked, pretty well. Shibata in 2016 was 4th out of 20th. Suzuki was 6 out of 20. Goto, 6 out of 20. Ishii, 5 out of 20. Hanare is technically the lowest, worst booked Never Champion ever, proportionally. Even worse than fucking Yujiro in 2014.
Wow.
I don't know why, because I have a feeling he's probably going to be one of the high performers in this block. He's been one of the most intense and consistently intense wrestlers of this year. So I'd imagine he's going to go into every match with that mindset. And he's certainly got a block that would be propitious for that. But yeah, no, he's at the bottom of the card pretty much every night. So I just don't get it. As far as the rest
what's
of the
your
block.
scenario for the end of B block then?
Which one? What, him and Goto?
Yeah, who do you think is finishing first, second, third in B block and making it through to the finals?
At the moment, I have Tsuji winning the block. Let me pull it up. And then I've got Finlay and Takeshita in the semifinals, Finlay going through, and then I've got Finlay going through to the final, which I have a very Caucasian final, which makes me very nervous and unsettled. So I've got to really look at the numbers again to see that. But I kind of like the mindset that I've got is that Takeshita is going to get the win over Tsuji. And then, one of the things that this format takes away from us by having these rematches is sort of that lingering tension after a G1 where somebody beats somebody and then, that's hung over them for, the rest of the year or the next year. I would like to think that Takeshita gets the win on Tsuji and then that's not resolved. I would like to have some things that aren't resolved, and that's probably the number one thing I would like not resolved. But then I got to have David Finlay go through, and I just don't think they're going to do Finlay versus Sabre. But like I said, I can't resist walking into my hole for Sabre. But that's where I am right now. Takeshita, Finlay, Tsuji. And Uemura sucks. Right and Renda Rita's trash, by the way. Like, Renda Rita is absolute garbage. Like, I got a whole thing about him in my preview.
At the moment,
yeah.
At the moment, I'm thinking, gun to my head, my A block winner is Zach. My B block winner is Tsuji. And I think they tease that Tsuji being G1 winner and New Japan Cup winner. But I think Zach beats Tsuji in the G1 final.
Yeah. I mean, I've gone with Zach all goddamn year for whatever reason. I had a bug up my ass for Zach all year.
It's coming home. It's coming home. It's coming.
Well, I mean, I've been there all year. So why stop that train now? I do like the fact, though, boy, and I hate that it was a great job by J. Michael in the sense that he did give us a lot to fucking chew on. But the one of New Japan Cup winners, and nobody's done it yet. And we got a guy that we want to rocket ship, and he's already won it. Now, Zach won New Japan Cup, correct me if I'm wrong. So does that put a damper on anyone's feelings for Zach making it through?
No, I mean, I think it's the caveat is winning the New Japan Cup in the same year.
Just in Japan. Okay, gotcha. I'm with you. So that is correct, right? It's same year, correct, J. Michael?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm a fucking dork. All right. I have one last question. How much of the stats and the data that might generally carry over year to year, how much do you think of that is coincidental? And G1 is really within that framework of that given year and the wrestlers that they have to work with and all of the logistics, et cetera, et cetera. Do you think that there's anything consciously that they do that carries over year to year, or is it just, hey, it fucking fell that way just because of the cards that we were dealt for that particular year?
That's it exactly, I think. I think the G1, what I appreciate about the G1 is that it's just sort of a blank slate. It's like a novel or a poem or any literature where, whatever the author intends, you're just going to go wherever the fuck you want anyway. I think the only thing that I think has conviction is the winners. And maybe like whoever comes in second or third place if there's some sort of like tiebreaker thing. But everything after that, I think, just lays down and the stats just become. And I've actually got an interesting point on that. So talking about ELP and him doing his sort of, antidepressant medication commercial posting and just sort of like feeling like he's sort of lost in the shuffle for years now. He's actually sort of like the king of the tiebreaker situation. So in 2022, that was the year where like D-Block could have been like a 7-way tie, but Ospreay won. And then there was a 5-way tie for second. And usually those end up being unbreakable ties somewhere. ELP was just straight up second place. He just won that tiebreaker and amongst 5 people. That's a tough tiebreaker, but he was second place. Now, obviously only one person went through, so he was on the cusp. Last year, he was caught in another 5-way tie for third place, and he was the sole person to end up third. So, it's a cool little fact, but I think it also shows just how little they care past like the first people who advance. Because like ELP probably making it through, considering what they've done with him since, probably is just something that just happened. It's just happenstance. But it does stand to something that, he did make it through all of them. So they did give him the win somewhere. Right. So I think it's all interpretation anyway. The stats are just what you interpret them as.
All right, I've got a few questions to get through before we wrap up here. Daryl says you have to advance one of the Musketeers, Yuya, Gabe, or Oleg, at least to the finals, right? No,
hold on, Joel. Can I just say one more last thing about B-Block? Just to keep it from going to bed, but also there was something I just wanted to bring up about B-Block that final night. I'm really scared. I'm really terrified because, like, you'll see when the preview comes out. I am a very staunch Takeshita supporter. I pretty much at this point only watch New Japan and DDT. And I love how DDT, like, every generation produces, like, the best wrestler in the world, like Ibushi and Hirashima and Takeshita. And I think he should go through. I think he should just fucking wipe the floor with everybody. But Ren Narita on the final night for him is very scary for me. That just screams that he's going to get fucked with. Like, if you're picking Takeshita, I think you'd want to really think carefully about that final night and whether he's going to beat Ren. Because Ren sucks, but Ren is a character, and this would be a good character work thing for him.
Yeah, did he do that in the last one? He spoiled Kiyomiya, didn't he?
He did, and that was actually
before he even turned heel, and now he's an evil little goblin.
That's right. And I do suggest there is an interview with Ren Narita on the website, whatever the fuck you can make of that website, is on there if you can find it. And there's also an interview with Takeshita. Did you guys know that Tsuji and Takeshita went to the same university at the same time?
I did see that somewhere. I forget where. I did see that. I think that there was a possibility they may have even played maybe I'm wrong. I'll hold on. I was going to say maybe they played American football together. I wanted to say.
Oh,
for some reason.
even better. So they asked Tsuji, like, did you know this kid? Because he's like, Takeshita's like 2 or 3 years younger than him. And he was like, no, I didn't know who he was. We didn't really interact. And they asked him, at that point, Takeshita was like 3 or 4 years already into wrestling. You look back and he's this rail thin kid. And they asked like Tsuji, did everybody know that like here was this guy who's already a wrestler? And he said, yeah, we knew that the kid that started the Barbell Club was a wrestler. So while Tsuji was playing American football, Takeshita was starting the Barbell Club.
There you go. There it is.
Interesting stuff. Well, back to Darrow's question then. He says, you have to advance one of the Musketeers, Yuya, Gabe, or Oleg, at least to the finals, right? No offense to any of the older guards, but we definitely can't have 2 of them in the finals this year, can we? I'd love to see at least 3 of them in the final 6 playoff. So how many of the youths, Musketeers and or Yuya, Gabe, or Oleg, do you think are making it deep into the tournament?
I'd actually like to add one to that list. Like, it's very hard to forget because he's just been around so much and he's just been this sort of like low hum for several years now. But David Finley's only 31. Like, he's the same age as these guys. He predates them, but like if we're talking about young guys, he's not like presented in the advertising as such, but David Finley is that age, and so is Hanare. So, I would add him in and say that, like, even if you don't get one of those guys, but you get David Finley, even if, like, the perspective and perception isn't that he's one of those guys, I think, like, I would count him as one.
I can't see Gabe being... I can see him playing a spoiler role. I can't see him being a big in-the-mix guy. I think Yuya has a shot, no doubt. Yeah, but I think... Yeah, I can't see Ren, again, other than being a spoiler. Shota, I think there's a shot, sure. Yuya, I think he could be...
Let me flip it around then. Here's an interesting one. David Bentley Fart says, which Reiwa Musketeer gets the fewest points this year? And I think it's
Ren.
Probably going to be Ren.
Are we saying it's just the 3 of them, not including Uemura?
You could throw him in there if you want.
Okay, good, because I actually have a scenario for that. So if it's just the 3 of them, I think it's Narita, but I think what's going to happen is that, like, if Naruto and Uemura, I think they're going to tie, because of, I think Oleg's going to beat Yuya on the final night, for one. And Ren might beat Takeshita. So I think that with those, like, if that happens, I think they're going to end up tied. And I think Narita's going to beat Uemura. They've actually very fewly wrestled. But I think it's going to end up being Narita being on tiebreaker. By the way, do you guys know the last time that Ren Narita and Yuya Uemura actually wrestled? They've only wrestled 12 times, but take a guess for the last time they wrestled.
Was it pre-pandemic?
Nope.
This was last year's G1, wasn't it? Like,
it's even better than that.
undercard.
Yuya wasn't in the G1 last year.
No. It wasn't in an undercard?
I don't think Yuya would come back then. He was still in the States on excursion.
It was not in America. Or it wasn't in Japan. It was in America. They were the opening match of the JCP Ric Flair's last match on July 31st, 2022. That was the last time these motherfuckers shared a ring.
Is that the Conrad
absolute
show?
travesty. Yeah, that mortgage motherfucker. Yeah.
Wow.
If there's ever been a argument against, like, late stage capitalism, it's that fuckers like him put their wealth together and then, like, book shows to see their father-in-law have a heart attack.
Oh, that's, I mean, outrageous.
I'm not, fuck them. But yeah, Ren Narita versus Yuya Uemura was the opening match of that show in Nashville.
Oh, that's craziness. All right.
All right, here's the next one then. Reese says, what do you think will be the biggest upset win of the G1 this year?
I mean, I hope it's Callum Newman beating Naito. I don't think Callum and Bolton are going to really get much, to be honest. I think, like, Callum's going to, like, 2, maybe 3 wins. I think Bolton, just because this is the land of hierarchy, is probably going to win, like, 1 or 2. But honestly, like, when I saw that question, what stood out to me is like the idea of an upset is a perspective, and like a lot of these just don't feel like upsets.
Yeah.
Like it feels like things that should happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's more of a level playing field this year, even with the two guys coming in through the qualifiers. Like, it's not like, we're going to have something like, I don't know, Tangaloa pinning Okada or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on like Gabe Kidd over Zach. Is that an
Right.
upset? You know, probably, but is it like an overwhelming one?
I was thinking Callum over Gabe. But again, is that much of an upset?
Right.
I
Right.
could see it happening. I could see it being presented as one where he rolls him up and then the crowd go nuts and then he's running out of the ring and Gabe is screaming and Callum's saying, "Oh, I'll get a shot at your strong title." So, yeah, I could see something like that happening. But there's not such a huge gulf. Like in B block, like, is there anyone could
I don't think so.
pin any of the guys in B block where I'd be like, "Whoa, I can't believe that happened"? Not really.
Right.
I will say, like, one of the things that I'm looking for when I saw that question was what's happening at Korakuen. And I know that we talked about Naito losing to Shingo and losing to Lee, but Naito versus Umino as the semi-main event at Korakuen seems very tempting to me as a upset.
I mean, that puts him at 3 losses. Just saying. You know, if we're doing Jake, we're doing Evil as a possibility. We're doing Shingo as a possibility. I mean, he's going to wind up, having to do a clean sheet if that's the case.
Yeah, that's the problem with it.
Okay, John's 3 cents says, with roughly half the field being G1 debuts or Musketeers, how many can have overall lackluster showings before the decisions are considered failure or, worse yet, disaster? So is there like a tipping point for you of guys in this 20 under-delivering, at which point you say, you know what, they fucked up. They should have put Ishii and Taichi and Yoshihashi and Tanahashi or whatever in that mix?
All right, let me start this one. So once again, I mentioned this could go tits up, right? This could just like not work at all. The investment, the changing of direction and philosophy and all of that, this could fail miserably. 100% could. Who knows, right? But we're trying to make profitable bets. We'll call it, right? And good, expected value. Right. I think right now, like here's the problem, is that I want good things to happen, but it's just not going to happen. You know, it just hasn't. And why would I do this again? Again, I'm doing the fit my body in the whole thing. Well, here it is with Great Okan. Like, you would think something would happen, but looking at the block, like there's not a person on that list that I could confidently say Great Okan can get a win over. Now, that's not saying that he's going to lose all those matches and that he's just going to just flounder. I'm hoping that we see some pretty solid matches. You know, that would be my highlight for Great Okan. I'm not expecting over 500. I'm not expecting a great amount of wins and getting his face on magazine covers. I'm looking at, dude, fucking not impress me, because who gives a fuck about that? But it's more of, come on, we want to get behind you. We're dying to get behind you. Give us something. And I just don't know if it's there at this point. That's the scary part. In B block, I think Ren, and I know there's a huge portion of the audience that has El Phantasmo on Fraud Watch too. So I think those are the two that I circle, that I'm kind of looking at with, a little hesitation and saying, okay, now's the time. Everybody else, I think, has a little bit of runway. I think those guys, I really need to see something like this tournament.
And on the flip side of that, Tarzan Boy 3000 says there's a lot of guys on Fraud Watch, given the sink or swim nature of the tournament, but who do you think will be the most trusted in terms of match quality? Previously, we've had Ishii and Ospreay, but it feels like maybe Shingo for A and Takeshita for B will look to carry the work rate. So by the end of this tournament, once we tabulate the cage match averages, who do you think your work rate top dogs are going to be in A block and B block in terms of delivering those stars?
I would actually throw another one into B block, and I would say, like, don't overlook Jeff Cobb's like ability to just have the kind of G1 match that we want him to have. Cage match doesn't really support him very well. I think he was 13th last year in cage match rating average, but I think Jeff Cobb is somebody who's going to have a great match every night, and filling that void. Besides that, I kind of agree with you on the other ones.
He was in a crappy block last year, wasn't he? So I think he's
a little bit
matched up more favorably this year.
Yeah, and especially I think there's a lot in B block that I think is congruent with each other. Like it seems like that would be a block that's going to gel very well together. You know, I think for A block it's probably Zach and Shingo. I don't know what we're going to get out of Naito, because Naito essentially kind of took the blocks off last year, like he probably should have, and then just turned it up for the playoffs. But I think there's a healthy amount of guys in both blocks if they just let these guys go. You know, the reason I said that before and why I really want them to let loose is because, you know, we have seen a real contraction and a real depression of ratings. I've got stats for that. In 2019, the cage match overall average was 7.7. In 2020, it dropped to 7.2. Then the malaise of the pandemic hit, and it was 6.6 in 2021 and 2022. And then it didn't go up in 2023. It was 6.5. But A block was easily the highest rated block, 6.8. The highest rating that any block has had since the pandemic. And that, of course, was the block with all the kids. So those numbers are very encouraging to me. And I think there's a lot of guys that if they, with the increased time limit back to 30 minutes again, I think we got a lot of guys that could really put together those 2, 3, even 4 match cards that we remember from G1's past.
Yeah, well, I can't wait for the tournament to get started. I think we've got 2 excellent cards coming up Saturday, Sunday, and by the time we record, we'll probably get Tuesday's card in as well. So it's the most wonderful time of the year. We love the Grade 1 Climax. Cannot wait for it. J. Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Is there anything you would like to plug before we wrap this one up?
No. No.
You have a big column. Come on. When is it? When should people expect this big column? Because everybody looks forward to it every year.
You know what? Thank you, Damon. So I do have a column, you know, just with work and fencing and all the other stuff. I've pretty much gone to previews these days, which means that I'm not on the hook for anything if something like is wrong. But I've got a 15,614 word preview of B block coming.
I've read it. It's really good.
You did read it?
Yeah, well,
I did.
It's 15,000 words, but most of those words is that for this year, I decided to list every single match that the wrestlers have had against each other, which, like, you know, I thought, no problem. Takeshita has never faced anybody here. Bolton's never faced anybody here. Fuck. Uemura and Yota Tsuji have faced each other 49 fucking times. So I had to list each one of those bit by bit. But that's mine. That should be coming out Thursday, probably Wednesday or Thursday. And the great John Carroll is doing the A block. And I've gotten to see his, and it's awesome. Obviously, you know, neither one of us really care about subjectivity. So it's going to be a forthright preview of both of them and very thorough.
I know.
As far as the other stuff, as the other stuff, just leave me alone.
No other guest appearances scheduled. All right. I would love to be your agent. I would take that task on in a heartbeat. Listen, I want to thank you. I know a lot of people geek out over this, right? And maybe to excess, but I love it. I really do. I get a charge out of it. Yeah. I love the analytics of it. I love the people who are able to pull significant, meaningful data and kind of make a story and out of those numbers. So I talked last week about Chris and the great job that he does when it comes to helping people digest this product. And I think we can add your name to the list. So I really appreciate you coming on and giving us your time and yeah, just kind of putting a different spin on it and letting the geeks who want to geek, can get out their fucking notebooks and geek, and I'm all there for it.
I appreciate that, and I also want to give a shout out to Chris. Like, Chris and I take different perspectives on this, because Chris is sort of like looking at it like real sport, and I'm just looking at it like the most fake thing in the world, and just totally pre-planned. And that's just where our stats sort of differ. But Chris and I talk a lot. We are constantly running stuff by each other, and I definitely would not have gotten as far as I have without Chris, for sure. He's an excellent person to talk to about this stuff. He's the MVP of the fandom, for sure, in my estimation.
Enjoy the G1, everyone. Bye.
Hello, Voices of Wrestling listener. Dave Ryan here. Have you ever wondered to yourself how many hidden gems are hidden away inside the last years of World Championship Wrestling? Have you ever asked yourself how many tenuous gags can be made about the name Mike Enos? And have you ever thought about what it sounds like for two Irishmen to interpret a very chaotic company through its B-show? The answers to all this and more are just a click away. Check out Days of Thunder every second Thursday on the Voices of Wrestling podcast network.